No one wants to think about bad times, but preparation for emergencies is oftentimes the only way to ease the stress that comes with dealing with the chaos of the moment. Of course, this varies based on where you're from, but it's possible that during our lives, emergencies happen, and the last thing you want on your mind is how you're going to afford it. And we see these bleak figures every year. Most Americans lack enough emergency savings to last more than a few months. Worse, this time around, 25% of Americans have no emergency savings at all. I recently had to deal with some unexpected difficulties and had to utilize several different financial resources to help weather the storm. The last few weeks, thousands of people have been trying to pick up where they left off following Hurricane Ida. So to stir a little discussion and get you thinking about your emergency plans, I thought I'd take some time to talk about handling finances during an emergency and some of my experiences over the last few weeks. Let's talk about emergency finances in a pinch, and let's get to it. What's up, YouTube? James from Thursday Media here, and so happy to be back in studio. And while I don't have everything back up in perfect shape, it's good enough to get restarted. I thought I'd use my recent experiences evacuating from and dealing with the aftermath of Hurricane Ida to share with you my financial thoughts on managing your money while away from home. Millions of people across our country live and work in regions where Mother Nature can uproot our lives in an instant. In some of the worst cases, disaster leaves people with no home, no belongings, and a sense of no hope. Trying to decide on how to begin putting your life back together is hard enough, but struggling with financial resources can make the emotional burden even harder. Thinking about your savings and having a plan ahead of time can make the process smoother, but nothing really replaces the stress and heartache that comes from dealing with the aftermath of a disaster. So keep in mind that having financial plans and resources doesn't completely remove the burden of rebuilding, but it does provide some breathing room to get your thoughts together. While natural disasters vary from area to area, I do have some thoughts on where I evacuate to depending on what's about to happen. And evacuation costs are usually the first large expense that has to be dealt with. In my case, I handled hotel and food expenses using credit. I try to keep low or zero balances on my credit cards in case of emergencies, and evacuations fall directly in that category. Credit companies have apps that also help me track how much I'm spending and provide a list of what I spent while I'm away from home in the event I needed to explain those costs in the future. The important thing for me is to have those credit balances start low and save that available credit for when I really need it. Of course, after the dust settles, I have a plan to pay off these expenses, but when I evacuate, I don't want to stress about the dollars in the bank account. The scary part is that the average American family carries a monthly credit balance of over $5,000. And adding significant unexpected expenditures on top of this balance could cause their credit to spiral if they lack the savings to handle the emergency. When I evacuate, I like to make sure that I bring copies of our insurance policies and any other information about my home, including recent pictures. And this is because there are some processes that can be started early if you have the information on hand. You could also keep a copy of your insurance information in the cloud on something like Google Drive. That way it can be accessed from anywhere. As annoying as it sounds, even if you identify yourself and your address, insurance companies have a tendency to want specific information like your policy number to get the ball rolling. Not having it on hand could add to delays, but if you have insurance and your policy helps during events that cause you to be displaced, make sure to contact your insurance agent and get the process started. Most insurance policies on homes also require deductibles be paid, and those could be thousands of dollars. This is where a savings account comes in handy for me. I generally keep my savings aside to pay deductibles in the event that is necessary. Thankfully, I didn't have to deal with any damage that required making a claim this time on insurance. I also find it wise to travel with cash on hand. If your area loses power completely, the only way of conducting transactions might be with physical cash. In my case, there were several days that our region did not have power, and even if a shop could open, cash was sometimes the easier or only option. Now, I'm not promoting carrying around large sums of money, and definitely not all on your direct person, but being able to pay with physical cash might make getting what you need easier shortly after a disaster. Another resource I reached out to and to not forget about is FEMA, or the Federal Emergency Management Agency. FEMA's mission is to utilize the resources of the federal government to help people in disaster areas. Some of these resources come in the form of supplies, but a large chunk is providing financial assistance to help people get back on their feet. The agency's website is one of those places those seeking help can apply and submit information about their unique situation and see if any resources can be provided to help. They also send agents to disaster zones to collect information and see what help they can provide. From assistance for rebuilding to disaster-related nutrition assistance, FEMA provides financial resources during emergencies, so if you need their help, make sure to reach out. Filing with FEMA will also have your information forwarded for a disaster SBA loan. A disaster SBA loan can be taken to make repairs that neither FEMA nor your home insurance will cover. However, these loans can also be used to pay deductibles that you otherwise might not be able to pay after burning funds post-evacuation. And finally, probably one of the most important financial resources that I have in an emergency is a strong network. Human resources are probably the most valuable financial resource during a disaster, and that's an understatement. Family, friends, and volunteers can make a world of difference in helping soften the financial blow caused by emergencies, especially those emergencies preventing you from being able to stay at home. When friends and family step up and provide a room for a night or a warm meal, that is a major sigh of relief. While many people want to shoulder problems on their own, building a strong network of friends and reaching out in times of need might be one of the most invaluable resources that will save you from burning through your savings. There were a lot of people that reached out and helped this time around, and I hope one day I can return the favor. Anyone that helps you conserve your financial resources during disasters and gives you the breathing space to get a game plan together deserves our thanks. Knowing what kind of disasters impact your area and having a rough idea of how your finances fit into it if the worst does happen will allow you to get a plan together that hopefully keeps you safe and your finances intact. Lack of power and sewage problems did keep me displaced from my home for about 15 days. Now that everything is back up and running, it's time to clean up the mess and get back on track. So definitely a huge thank you to the many people that reached out and helped along the way. But as always, I am not a financial advisor. I'm just a regular guy with a regular job, just hoping that everyone is prepared in the event that they have to deal with a disaster. So always make sure that you do your own research before making any financial decision and that you make financial decisions that you're comfortable with. If you were also recently part of a disaster, I'll leave you some links down below that'll help get you started. Some of these do ask for personal information, so always make sure that you know what you're signing up for and don't do this on a public computer. If you like this video and you want more like it, make sure that you subscribe to the channel. I try to post twice a week unless I throw in a bonus. Stay safe, have an emergency plan, and thanks so much for being here, and I'll see you in the next one.